welcome to the Fertility Conversations podcast. The goal of this podcast is to create more awareness about infertility and to provide support to people trying to conceive. Thank you for listening today, and we hope you will be encouraged. And now, here is your host, Ola.
Welcome to episode 27. Today I'm joined by an incredible woman, ChiChi. ChiChi is married and lives in the UK. She's had fertility treatments in 5 countries in Europe and also consultations in other countries as well. ChiChi will be sharing her experience traveling abroad for treatment with us today. And if you'd like to connect with her, you can reach her on Instagram at makingbabyo_. Her details would also be in the show notes. So welcome, ChiChi, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yay. So to start off, we always say, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
What is there to tell? I live in the UK, born and raised in the UK. Been married for, trying to remember, it's not even that long. Been married for six years this October. Yeah, married for 6 years. We met in 2004. How many years ago is that? Like,
Long time. Very long time.
Yeah. Met a long time ago. Well, we were both at uni, so we've known each other a very, very long time. Can't calculate how long that is, but yeah.
Yeah, like 16 years.
Yeah,
very
6
long.
years, yeah.
Wow.
What else is there to tell?
What do you do for fun?
Travel. Like to travel. Yeah, I like to go away or weekend breaks or just travel. Yeah,
London is good for that. Okay, so London is good for that, right? You have like lots of weekend getaways to
it's
countries
easy to get away.
Right.
Europe, because Europe is just on the doorstep, so there's loads of places to discover, to explore. That's not that expensive to get to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And of course, today we are having you here because we want to talk about fertility. So tell us a little bit about your fertility journey so far.
So we've been on a fertility journey probably about 7 years. 8, 9, 10. No, maybe about 8 years. So I just think with fertility, it just feels that I've always had a feeling. It's such a weird feeling that I was going to have a fertility issue. So
really?
Yeah, so as long as I can remember, I used to just love children and babies when I was younger, to teenagers, always wanting to babysit or help out with any family members or aunties that had little babies and feed them. Just always been so intrigued. And I think maybe like my 20s, I just always had this feeling that I would have an infertility issue. And as an African, you tell your mom, it's like, don't say things like that. You don't say those things out. Yeah.
God forbid.
God forbid. But and I think I remember I saw like a doctor for like heavy periods, and I would ask, oh, is there issues? And he would say, oh, there's no issues. You're too young. But you get older, and though I don't know whether I could have discovered I would have had infertility issues, etc. But you don't talk about it. You don't talk about it at 20. You don't talk about it as a teenager. Heavy periods are just heavy periods. That's just how it is. But it's just sometimes I just think about things like that. It should, maybe people who have, teenage daughters or have heavy periods, or they don't have to go and do fertility tests or things like that. But, you can start researching up on it or just thinking about it. It's not to say you're going to have a fertility issue, but we just expect everything is fine. It's not possible, So when me and my husband, were getting engaged, having our traditional, because we were, how old were we? I can't remember how old were we when we had our traditional. We were probably like early 30s. So after we had our traditional, if we got pregnant and stuff, because we're older, it would be okay, etc. And then I was away for work in New York, and I was having lunch with a colleague, and I remember exactly where I was in New York, near Times Square, the restaurant, everything, and I think we paid, and I got up, and I just felt this rush of blood, of wetness, or I was thinking, did I wet myself? It was the weirdest sensation I've never experienced before. And I just said to my colleague, I really need to go back to the hotel. I just really need to go. So I went back to the hotel, went to the toilet, thinking I had wet myself. I was so embarrassed, not sure what had happened, and touching my behind, and got to the hotel, rushed to the toilet, and all I saw was just blood. And I couldn't. I was so worried. I didn't know what it was. Yeah. I was just like so confused. And then my colleague was asking me if I'm okay, if I was okay. And she's an older woman. And I was saying, I don't really understand. It's blood. It doesn't feel like a period. And then she just went really quiet. And then I was in the toilet. I was still in the toilet, and she just went really quiet. And she just said, "Oh, can I just say something?" And she said, "I think you're having a miscarriage." I was so shocked. It was just unbelievable. She said let's try and go to like a pharmacy, because some pharmacies in New York have doctors and etc. So we looked online, went round to the pharmacy, but there was a doctor there, so you could see someone quickly. And then they said, it sounds like a miscarriage. So he said to me to buy a pregnancy test. And I was just so shocked. And then I said, okay, then I went back to he said, so if it is positive, it means that you're having a miscarriage. It'll be very early, etc. So I took the pregnancy test, and it was positive. So I was having a miscarriage, which should have been extremely early on. But that basically started this big can of worms of infertility, and that was 2012.
Wow, so, you're not even aware that you're pregnant?
No, not aware at all.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that was just awful. You just have to wait for everything to happen. And then I think I went back to London like within 2 days, because I just wanted to be home, as you can imagine. And I got home, and on the way home, I just had this numb pain in the lower back, just constantly. Oh, and then I remember it was just shocking. I don't know if I got the flight the same day or next day, but I got home quickly anyway. And I was just in bed, trying to wait for the pain to pass, etc. And then went to go and see a GP. And because I've never really heard of anyone talk about a miscarriage or anything. You just go online and Google. I just had no experience of what is a miscarriage or how do you anything. So I went to go and see the GP. Goodness, so I went to the GP, and I went to see this GP, and I don't know what was wrong with the GP. And the GP said, "Well, what do you want me to do?"
What?
Yes. It's obviously a miscarriage. What do you want me to do? So I lost it. I went absolutely crazy on the woman. Like, how can you be so...
It was a woman too. Oh,
yes, it was a woman. It was a woman. It's awful. It was a woman. She literally... I won't forget those words. What do you want me to do about it? Wow. So I went crazy. Then I had to see the surgery manager, to sort things out, whatever. Then I saw another doctor who was more sensitive. Took urine sample and just did some blood tests, and apologized and explained about miscarriages, it'd be early, etc., and just to stay home, etc. So that's what I did. But then that basically had opened a can of worms of another bigger issue that we did not realize was happening. So then I think maybe a week or two or something like that later, I wouldn't stop bleeding. I was bleeding. I wouldn't stop bleeding. Called the GP, and they said that they referred me to go straight to the hospital to have a scan.
Right.
So I went to have a scan. Then they saw something, and they were not sure. So they referred me to the hospital, the gynecology hospital, to see a doctor within a few weeks. Right. they said they had to do some investigation. They booked me a surgery, and I was quite surprised, because I don't know if anyone who lives in the UK will realise with NHS these things don't happen that quickly.
Right?
Yeah, but that was a few years ago now. So then they referred me for a surgery, so they could look inside my womb because of the bleeding. They were not sure, etc. And then I remember coming out from the surgery. It was a laparoscopy. It was under anesthesia. I remember coming out of surgery, and then they said, and this is the thing, you're coming out of anesthesia, and they're telling you this information that you don't really understand what it means. And then the lady said, oh, it was a surgeon, lady surgeon. And the only little things I remember her saying was, I'm sorry, but you'll probably need IVF to have children. She didn't really explain that they found something called endometrial hyperplasia. You would never have heard of endometrial hyperplasia unless you have gone through it. No one really.
Because I'm not even sure what that is.
Yeah. So endometrial hyperplasia is thickened cells, thickened wall cells, thickened cells that grow in the womb, and that can lead to cancer.
Oh no.
Yes, that's what happens. So I know, it's crazy. So it literally opened a can of worms. So I had to see a doctor, and once again, we were referred back to the hospital for them to explain and wait, and the results of the biopsy. So I remember we were waiting. I had just asked my husband to get me some water. As soon as he went to get me water, I got called in to the doctor. And it was a man, I got called. I still remember his face till today. And he said, I'm sorry, we have found endometrial hyperplasia with atypia. When it's atypia at the stage that you're at, this will lead to cancer. So you have to have a hysterectomy.
What?
Yes. Can you imagine hearing those words? Yeah. And I just burst into tears, and I just thought, goodness, the delivery as well.
I know.
I just could not stop crying, and I was asking questions, and it was just awful. It was just the worst thing you could hear. And I was crying, and then a nurse came to me, a Nigerian nurse, actually. She came to me and she was holding me, told me to stop crying, that she's going to see if I can see a different doctor, that she doesn't want me to see that doctor, that she's a doctor that I can see, and they can talk about other options.
Yeah.
So she got me to see another doctor, which was a female doctor, a female Asian doctor, and she explained, and then my other half had come back now, and he saw me crying, trying to understand. It was just awful. And she explained what they had found, what they thought, but she told me there were other options of treatments that I could do, but we couldn't get pregnant, and probably the likelihood of that pregnancy having a miscarriage or early miscarriage was likely because of this that happened. Right. But she also said to me, like, I will never forget her saying this, that as awful as it is, that miscarriage probably saved my life, because we wouldn't have looked. We wouldn't have looked there to find. You just wouldn't have until. Yeah,
you wouldn't have thought of it. Yeah,
until it's too late. So, and then she said as well that sometimes a lady has gotten pregnant and they found the endometrial hyperplasia, and then it's gone too far that they decide not to have treatment, and it leads on to cancer. Yeah, so there's just, I mean, as bad as it was to hear all that, there was still, it just felt like some things that happened for a reason, as awful as it was. So they told us we couldn't get pregnant, so they had to put a coil to make sure we don't get pregnant, a Mirena coil, so that's a contraceptive. Right. They had to have that placed in me. It was, for me, I don't know, my body just reacted awfully to that. I just kept on feeling like I was getting stabbed, but I had to have it. It felt like stabbing pains every once in a while, for me. And then I was put on steroid treatment. So I just had to have this big treatment, which probably took about 2 years. And then steroids make you put on weight as well, as you can imagine. your hormones, it messes up your hormones. So I was on this steroid treatment and this other treatment for about 2 years. I had to have biopsies so they can keep checking if the cells were getting cancerous or going back. So after 2 years, I had my update. They said everything had gone back to normal. So it wasn't atypical cancerous, so it had regressed. It had regressed, but they did tell me that it might be high risk, it might not, because sometimes once you get pregnant, the cells start growing again. Yeah. Wow. So I didn't have to have a hysterectomy, and they said we should try now to have a child as quick as possible. So we tried. We were referred to the IVF clinic in London. It was Guy's and St Thomas's, and we did the Clomid, letrozole. Because of the steroids I had to put on so much weight. It was difficult to lose the weight. It was so frustrating. So each time I lost the weight, I'd get to a certain point, and then I think that was probably another 2 years. We had to do a number of Clomid cycles, letrozole cycles, and then I just that was when I decided that I'm not going to wait for NHS here. I'm just going to look abroad. So that's how I started looking for clinics abroad. I had been looking previously before because I had been to the Fertility show a number of years back. So I had already been thinking about fertility clinics abroad. Where else do you want me to continue to?
Wow, you said so much. Like, I'm like, wow.
I know. So that was the initial.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Fertility journey, infertility journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, I'm so sorry about your loss, and that's really a terrible experience. But somehow that led to you, like just like the doctor said, led to you finding out, like the other issues that happened afterwards for you, finding out the condition you had, and being able to treat it right away.
Yep, that's basically what happened.
It's crazy, right? Can you imagine if you didn't have that experience, like if you didn't have that pregnancy, if you didn't lose the pregnancy, there would have been no symptoms. You would just have it's
no symptoms. You would just something will happen when it's probably too late or too far. No symptoms at all.
Wow, I'm so sorry. And some doctors are just so like, I think part of their training, they should definitely be having bedside manners training. Like, I mean, if you're going to be treating people anywhere, it doesn't matter what specialty you're in. I mean, you certainly should understand that you need to talk to people with some kind of empathy.
I guess sometimes with some people, because I guess it's not everybody, it just becomes their job, doesn't it? You just become a number on a file. Not everyone, obviously, because there's loads of nurses you meet, but I just guess sometimes you just become a number.
But you're still a person, right? You're still a person, and you're in that field where you're supposed to give empathy and compassion and understanding. These are life-changing things. We're not going to going to buy some clothes or like just changing shoes or whatever.
Yeah, this is real life.
Well, and like you said, I appreciate they might have seen thousands and thousands of other people in the same condition, but for you, this is your one. You're not a doctor seeing other patients. This is your one. This is my, issue or another, or like it's something individual to yourself. It's not just like just not another number or another patient I need to check off quickly so I can move on to the next. So
and some people don't get that, which is awful, which is sad. People come into the hospital or come in to see a health profession not because they want to, because there is a problem.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so sorry. But again, we are thankful that you're here and well today, and that they were able to treat the condition early enough and stop from getting worse. Yeah.
Very grateful.
Wow. And so now, after, obviously not wanting to deal with NHS and the delays that could come from it, you decided to travel abroad. How has that been? You've been to 5 countries, like seriously?
Yes, I've been to 5 countries. It really has been a journey. Yeah,
that's a lot of countries.
That's a lot of countries. So I've UK, because I live here, is one of them. where I've had treatment. Greece, Czech Republic, Poland, and Bulgaria. Wow. So, yeah, probably not. I don't know. Some of those countries people wouldn't really think about going there. No. And it's a lot of research. I was trying to remember how I came about.
I was going to ask you, like, how did you even decide to
go? With Czech Republic, there's clinics there that are extremely popular. So there's a lot of boards you can go on and read up about and check people's experiences and speak to people about the clinics, the experiences. And there's a lot of the clinics have private Facebook groups.
I see.
So you can really read and do some more research and speak to people directly. So that's good. But I mean, Bulgaria and Poland, I don't think I've seen much online about that. One of the things when I was thinking about clinics, I didn't want a big clinic as well, because I just thought, how will you get that one-on-one that a lot of clinics say that they do, and by the time you get there, you realize they don't. It's all a farce. They're just as busy as everybody.
I know. It's like, oh, you got 20 minutes. Quick, get onto it. Let me see, move on to the next one.
I think, and then a number of years ago, I went to the Fertility show, maybe 2013, 2014, and I spoke to a lot of clinics and read up about them. I think I was considering going to Norway.
Okay.
Norway initially. And another reason that I went abroad was cost as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think living in the UK, you do live here and think, we have the best doctors and the standard, is excels than any other, and everywhere else is standards, and that's not true, because the UK is great. They have a great standard, of course, but it doesn't mean that Europe or other countries don't have the same standard. I think there's just that belief. And hence why the price can be the price that it is, but that's not the truth. Because I've been some of the clinics I have been to, before I went there, the research, the doctors, you can find out where they've trained. A lot of these doctors have trained in the UK, other European countries, in America. There's just, it's not really, it's the same standard. And I realized as well, some other European countries, in comparison to some clinics here, unless you've got the money to pay 20,000, to pay those prices, you can find that in Europe at a fraction of the cost. So I just felt that I didn't want to put us in debt. If we have to go on the IVF journey, etc., I still want to be able to live. I still want to be able to do things that I want to do, not have to live on the shoe line. Because as you do research and things like research, you realize that it's not, you don't realize it. You can kind of have it in the back of your mind, it might not work, but you have to be positive. It's going to work. So that was mainly one of the reasons. It was costs. I didn't want to bring major financial costs to our marriage as well. I just felt if I can go, Europe can be 2 hours away, so a maximum of 2 hours away was what I was looking at. Sorry, where was I? Where am I next?
Yeah, you're talking about the reasons for going to going abroad and not wanting to wait, and then of course the cost as well. And the cost obviously is a very important factor. And like you rightfully said, there are many great clinics in the UK and outside the UK, which is what I always tell people, because I think sometimes in our minds we think the more expensive, the better. So, if it's £10,000 in the UK, then it's probably better than another clinic that is, 2,000 euros somewhere else in Europe, but it's not necessarily the case.
Because even one cost of a cycle in the UK, even if you go to abroad, that's a cost of 2 cycles. And that's one egg collection cycle, including the IVF and ICSI and medication, is basically 2 IVF egg collections, ICSI and everything, including flights, including hotels. It's the same. So you have to, that's how I had to weigh it up for me. And also there was just some more tests and things that I hadn't really heard about in the UK. So much more, and the monitoring of some of these clinics that they do, you didn't really hear about it in the UK, or there would be one or two clinics that you could get certain tests done at, but extremely high prices, high costs.
Yeah. Wow. And of course, like you mentioned rightfully as well, which is something I always think about, is the cost. Again, going back to the fact that you don't want to go into debt, because there's just no guarantees, right? No. You just keep.
There's no guarantees, and you don't really realize the guarantees. So I don't know. Sometimes I just feel especially when it hasn't worked, you just feel like you've thrown that money. You could have just
I'm like, seriously, I could have done something with that money.
Feeling, I know, it's an honest feeling, and I think sometimes people say, "Oh, you shouldn't say that because you tried," but no, when it doesn't work, you just feels. You just throw all that money in the bin. You could have just gone to throw it in the trash.
Pretty much. That's how it seems, right? It's like you're gambling, and there's no guarantees. Yeah.
You've spent this money for an egg collection, and oh, I don't know, we didn't collect any eggs, or oh, nothing implanted, or it just feels like that money is just gone.
And this is the only situation I find that you would actually gamble that kind of money. Because I mean, if someone said to me £10,000 now, or $5,000, whatever, give it to me. I'm gonna invest this for you in this thing, but there's like zero guarantees. And would be like, okay, sure.
No, that's so true. And that's the thing. That's the thing with IVF, because you could have a test that costs £800. You'll go and pay for the test, but go and buy a bag £800, or you'll be like,
I know, like £800.
Do I
really need it?
But is it a test? Is you've done the test and you just have the results on paper? That's your £800, £1,000.
That's my nice bag, or my nice pair of shoes, or whatever.
And it can keep going up. It can keep going up with every test, and that's another reason, because the amount of money I would have spent doing all these tests in the UK, it was just going to be crazy too much for us. I would not, I wouldn't be able to try and keep the balance of still being able to do other things. Yeah.
Wow. So your experience so far abroad has been great. You've loved it. You've been able to navigate your treatments and visiting.
In regards to getting there, navigating it, it's fine. Europe is, these countries when I think of Czech Republic, Poland, Greece, Bulgaria, their transport systems it's not, girls are like trains, you can use Uber, Bolt, it's easy to get around. And also they're English as well. Us Brits don't really learn much languages. We go to countries expecting them to understand English.
And you're like, what, you don't speak English?
Yeah. So the English is fine to get around. Yeah, it's just my experience has been easy. I mean, travel wise, it's 2 hours. 2 hours max. Greece is 3 hours.
Right.
But my experience has been, if the 4 countries abroad, my experiences has been completely different
for each one.
Yeah, completely different for each one. It's difficult to say positive, negative. Our first cycle was in Czech Republic. It wasn't in the capital, which is Prague. It's a 3-hour train journey from Prague.
Right.
But there's an airport that's an hour that you can get a flight from Stansted to, which is an hour away. When I started going to that clinic, I think it was a time where they just started to get really, 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 really busy. So I don't know. Sometimes you just, so you go into a cycle thinking it's going to work. You have to be positive. The doctor tells you it's 70% chance of it working. You're young. Oh, we've seen so many follicles. It's going to work. We're going to get 10 eggs or whatever. You know, you eat it all up. You eat it all up. Well, you have an egg collection. Well, and then what happens is you have an egg collection. Maybe you took the injection too early, or they told you to trigger too early, need an extra 2 days, and they collect 2 eggs. One's mature, one's not.
Oof.
So you've paid all that.
And it only takes one, right? We say that.
But you don't want one.
It only takes one.
Yeah, you hear that. It only
but
takes
you don't
one,
want one.
But you don't want one. Especially at the beginning of your journey. And you're reading 20 eggs were collected, 10 eggs were collected. You know, all these things that you read online, and you don't realize that everyone's body is unique, it's different. Yeah. You don't know what medication is. It's just so much you do not know. So we had one egg basically that we fertilized, and it lasted to day 5, which is crazy. Yeah, which is I don't know if everyone knows the whole process of IVF, but which also shows that they probably triggered too early,
right,
and needed a few more days. Anyway, then because we were going to PGT test our embryos, we had to do another egg collection because you can't just pay that cost for just one.
For one,
Did another collection, and then so this is when it begins advocating for yourself and realizing you can't listen to every single thing the doctors say. You have to think about things too. I'm not a doctor, but you know your body, or you think so. I ended up asking to stim for extra days, and the doctor saying, oh, no, we don't need to stim for extra 2 days. So, okay, I don't want to tell people what to do or not, but I just chose myself to stim for an extra 2 days, and then that's what I did. And the next collection was better. I think they collected 6 eggs, but then I thought again maybe they collected too early, which I think they did, and they could have increased the stims more, etc. So I think we had 4 embryos after day 5. We had 4 embryos which we sent off to be tested. So this is to be tested for genetics, because we hadn't gotten pregnant and IVF. We just thought, okay, let's just do it now. So these are extra costs again on top to get the genetic testing done, which takes 2 weeks. So we sent 4, and the genetic testing, can test for chromosomes and chromosome issues, just a long list of things they can pick up. So so we sent that off. 4 embryos sent off, and 4 embryos came back normal. So it's another.
What are the chances?
I know, another.
4
the
out
chances.
Of 4. Wow.
Yeah, 4 out of 4, and it was just. It's another. It's great, but it's another. Did we have to spend that money to test though?
I know, you're like, I could have just kept that money.
Because,
if just...
it comes. You're over 35. Your air quality is this, that, and the other, and sometimes it's not true, and that's another thing that everyone's body is different. It doesn't mean because you're 35 or your eggs are going to diminish. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that for everybody, or it means that there might be an issue. It doesn't mean that for every single person. But then, when that does happen, it's great. But you just think, oh my goodness, we just spent how many thousands on that? It's another thing. But then I always think about, if I had spent 2,000 to have the genetic testing, and I think if I had done it in the UK, the cost difference, then I think, okay, I'm okay. These are the things that help me. I compare the cost and think, oh, actually, that's not bad.
No, that's too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad that I've, it would have been way more if I'd done it in the UK. So that's the kind of costing. So basically we ended up transferring we ended up transferring 2 embryos. They didn't implant. You can imagine the first time it happens, you just think it's going to work and it doesn't work. You're just devastated.
Yeah, because you think it's gonna work, and no one actually tells you it's not gonna work. They need to prepare people better. Like they need to let you know. I mean, don't have to be negative, but you just need to let them know.
I think it's the whole thing about you have to be positive. You have to be positive. Yes, you definitely have to be positive, but also, you know, I think I don't know, because you don't want to say be positive, but it might not work. But it's just really reading maybe reading other people's stories and realizing that yes, everyone's timing is different, and yes, I have to be positive. It's going to work. It's going to be fine, but everyone's timing is different. But you just keep hoping that
and everything could be perfect and still not work. You know, like
perfect and still not work. Yeah. So that happened, and then it didn't work. The second time it didn't work. So I thought, okay, let me put the brakes on and try and look at other things. I started thinking about if there's any tests we need to look out, you know, for our body, or if there's any I always have heard about, you know, your body attacking embryos and your immune system,
NK cells or something.
NK cells, attacking your immune system. So I decided that we should do those tests to rule that out, to try and see what the implantation failure is, because everything looked okay inside.
Yeah,
I had I had hysteroscopy here in the UK and abroad, and they couldn't see any issues or no, you know, they looked for fibroids or growths or something. They could not see anything. Looked at in the womb in detail. They couldn't find any issues of why the embryos would not implant. So this is how I ended up going to Greece, Athens. I don't know.
Athens, beautiful place.
Do you want me to say the clinic names? That's another thing.
No.
No, okay.
I don't think so. Yeah.
You can't you? I'm not sure. So I went to Athens. To do these tests. There's a panel of tests, the Chicago test, a lot of NK cells and immune tests. Another reason that I didn't do it in the UK, because I think there's 2 or 3 places in the UK that is well known to do these tests, but it is expensive. It is extremely expensive. So you think, okay, going to Athens. Yeah, I went to Athens, and we thought we would make a holiday out of it as well.
I know, I was going to ask you that, we
did Czech Republic as well, actually. We actually, while we were in Czech Republic, went to Prague and just saw other parts of places we never really would have thought to go. So I went to Athens and we did all these tests, the panel of tests, and I think there was a gap in between. I think we had to wait for the test results to come back and things like that. So we went to Santorini, and that was really beautiful. Nice. Yeah, we decided while we were out there. Then we came back. We came back to Athens. I think it was the day before we were going back to get the test results. This is the first time I'd heard about DNA fragmentation. I had never heard about DNA fragmentation, and they thought that would be one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons for implantation failure. And I had raised NK cells, so at least they had found something or a reason or another thing that you could try before implanting the embryos again. So DNA fragmentation is another sperm analysis test that it looks at the stress of the sperm, and I don't know the full term. I haven't got everything here, but it just looks at the sperm in more detail, and that
oxidative stress, right?
Yes, and that does have an impact on implantation. But there's things that you can do. There's medication that men can take, which I need to take for 3 months, which should bring an improvement.
Right.
So my husband did this, and the improvements was just it just completely changed. So the DNA fragmentation is a percentage, and the percentage went right down.
Oh wow.
But even with DNA fragmentation, we have already created embryos.
Oh yeah.
So it's such a long journey, isn't it? So
yeah, it is.
So the clinic was telling us the embryos we have probably will not implant because the DNA fragmentation is so high.
Yeah.
But we should still try. And they gave me the NK cells. They gave me some medication or things to do to try and bring it down for next implantation. And which is really good with going to that clinic, because they knew we still had embryos and they still told us certain things that we should try and do for the embryos to implant. So that was good. So with that, I decided to think about doing another egg collection. Where would I do the egg collection, especially now knowing about NK cells and DNA fragmentation. So I really wanted to find a clinic that knew, that talks about DNA fragmentation and implantation failure, because I don't hear much about DNA fragmentation here. And even the Czech Republic. I mean, they started talking more about it now and doing the tests, but sometimes you have to request these tests, whereas in some countries it's standard to have these tests done at the beginning. Right. And that's what I found with Poland. I can't remember how I came across Poland. I really cannot remember. But then I just started looking at these clinics. I didn't want to go to the capital because where I went wasn't even the capital at all. It's just another town. I don't know how I came across this.
So much research, right?
So much research. And I just started looking at what they have as standard, and there was just so many other things that was a standard for them to look for and to investigate before you do the, if you've had 2 implantation failures, there's a panel of stuff that they will look and research into. And I didn't really find that in many other clinics, but also that is my infertility issue, is implantation failure. So I really did a lot of research and finding doctors that deal with implantation and what other options that they offer and what other tests they do. So I found that in Poland. So I went to Poland to do these tests, all these tests that I had never heard about, and they had got good results from. I did this test. And while I was in Poland, I found another clinic.
Become addicted now, right?
While I was in, and I think with this clinic, the doctors were great. The doctors were fantastic. And being a Black woman, African, going to Poland is not really where you would expect a Black. No, I'm not trying to say where you would not expect a Black person to be, but there is a lot of racism that you read about, hear about, the football as well, the far right. There's just a lot of racism there. So I decided I was still going to go there because of what I'm chasing. It was racism. So. And the doctors, they were just fantastic. And I realized as well, I think it just feels like with the medical professions, because they've probably trained all over the world, I didn't feel any different.
Right.
In regards to the treatment I got going to these clinics. Yeah, so the doctors were great. The admin was just a bit, not great. And I just thought, when you're not dealing with the doctors, you're dealing with the admin. I just thought it was so disorganized, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to have a cycle there. But the doctors were just great, and we did all the tests, and it was just really, 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 the doctors at that clinic were really good. And the aftercare, the follow-up, the questions, not being rushed. It's just the admin side. So while I was there, I found another clinic. And I think it was a 20-minute train journey. So that the train connections, etc., are just really good in Poland. So I got the train to this other clinic because I did some reviews. I don't know how I found them, but I did some research. They're like a big clinic, and they have 5 or 6 branches within Poland. And there was one near me. I saw the reviews, and one of the reviews of the doctor, a female doctor there, I thought, okay, I want to see this lady. So I went and had a consultation, and I was really impressed. I was really, really, really impressed with the clinic. Yeah, they were really, really good. So I decided that we were going to do the egg collection with the monitoring, and as well with Europe. ICSI, I don't know if depending on if people know about IVF and ICSI is 2 different IVF
packages. prices and stuff. Yeah,
prices. So with the UK, you can have IVF, but then to add ICSI is another £1,000 or £2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in Europe, ICSI comes as standard, unless they say no, you need to have IVF instead. You don't need ICSI part. Yeah. So in Europe, a lot of things like that is standard. This clinic in Poland, they were very. They just seem quite far ahead with new things they're doing to separate the sperm, all these tests. They take your blood so much. Like they do like literally every test, tick, tick, tick. They have a list of all the tests you've got to do. They tell you the reasons why, the extra tests. There's all these extra tests you can have if you want to, or if they have to get, it's just, so they really look at your immune system. They look at just so many different things. Yeah, so many different things, which was what I liked. It just seemed like the extra monitoring, the progesterone when you have a transfer before, all these extra things that you hear is good to do.
Wow.
We had to still transfer those final 2 embryos. That was quite difficult because the other clinic said they don't think it was going to work, but you still have to try. So I just tried not to go into it thinking it's not going to work anyway, but we did the transfer and it didn't work. So not a chemical, it just zero HCG, just nothing.
Yeah.
So that's 4 embryos. Yeah, so that's 4 embryos that didn't work. So we decided to do an egg collection in Poland.
And the new clinic you found?
In the new clinic we found, and with the DNA fragmentation in the sperm had gone down as well, so able to do a new collection. Yeah, with a new clinic I found. We went over a few times, and then we did the collection, and that worked out well. It was stressful because it's always stressful because not because you're just thinking, is it going to work? Are they going to collect eggs? What about if it happens the same thing that happened last time? Because it had been a while since I'd done a collection, maybe 2 years, I think. It'd probably been before I'd done my first, between when I'd done my first egg collection and my third. So I made a holiday out of it as well. Once again, I just decided to see Poland, and luckily a friend was able to come as well, so that was nice. I made a holiday out of it. Yeah, and then did the collection, and this time around they collected like 13 eggs.
Wow.
I know, right? So they collected 13 eggs, and by day 5, three made it to day 5, and and they were good grades, high grades. And with that, I was supposed to do a transfer straight away, but that didn't work out. So this is another thing, because they do so much tests on you and they have levels of how they want things to be. If one thing's off, they won't go ahead with it. So my thyroid was too high, so they cancelled the embryo transfer. So
wow,
that's
a lot of detail. Yeah,
I was so disappointed, but they were just explaining to me that they want us to have the best possible chance instead of just transferring it. A number of things that they check. So they gave me medication to bring my thyroid down, and when it comes down, I would be able to book in the transfer.
Right. Wow.
Yes.
That's wonderful. You found that clinic then randomly?
Randomly. It really was randomly. Yeah, because and the embryos were such good grades as well. So it really was a blessing. It really was how I just found them.
It was meant to be.
I'm sure I was there. I was their first Black patient, I'm sure.
And it's funny how you said that. You always wonder, because even I myself, every time I want to travel somewhere, I always check. It's crazy that we have to do this, but you have to. You check, other Black people here, or check if there have been are they black friendly? And it's weird, but it's the
I know
reality
it's
of
weird, but
things.
you think about it, especially when you're not going to the capitals of certain countries.
Exactly. Like,
I mean, yeah, you just, yeah, and you're a black doctor, so
yeah.
so you just wonder. But yeah,
So that's amazing that you had such a positive experience, even with the doctors in the clinics, regardless
I
of
did.
wherever it was. So that's really reassuring, because again, that's an important thing that people need. I mean, if you're black, you need to consider when traveling to places. All right. So thank you for sharing all your experience traveling abroad, and of course, letting us know the different things that you had to consider when choosing a clinic and other tests that were being done. Knowing how you stated that you've been married for 6 years, and I think trying to conceive a little more than 6 years as well.
Yeah.
How would you say that infertility has impacted your relationship with your husband, if it has in any way?
I think it's definitely made me realize how much of a team we are. And I just think, as the woman, you do end up doing, booking the flights or looking for the clinics, or speaking to the clinics more, or doing so much research online, as you chase this dream of, what kind of feels robbed from you in a way of having a child or having a family. You do forget, I don't know if you do, but I forget that he's in it too, and he wants a child too, and he's not really the type of person who shows emotions, I think like our first transfer that didn't work, just to see how broken he was, it really made me remember that he is in it too. He's feeling, as much as I'm feeling, the pain, the disappointment. Yes, he doesn't feel the injections and the medication, the weight gain, all that stuff and all that frustration, but he's there with me. So it's made me feel more like we're a team, reminded me, it definitely, because it's been such a long journey. And it's made me appreciate our relationship, because not that he hasn't made it difficult. He's been there with me, because as it should be. It's not like that. It's not like that with everybody. It really isn't, because we're all individuals, husband and wife, we're still individuals. You take things differently. But yeah, that's what it's made me appreciate our relationship and the team that we are. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. What about relationships with your friends? Do you think it's played any role or impacted it anyhow?
It actually makes me smile when you ask me that question, because I've really, my journey, infertility journey, has really showed me that I have got some really, really good friends, that I have got, like my inner circle of friends who I've been able to talk to about my infertility journey or fertility journey. Some of them who don't want kids, who have kids, who have kids that are in their 20s, or who have that dream to find someone to get married and have kids, but how they have been there for me through an experience that, they had know nothing about, because they're all at different stages. But they have really been there for me at the end of the phone. Don't understand IVF, but been there for me. The amount of my friends that have traveled with me, it's just amazing. It's just really showing me that I've got some great friends, and I don't. The friends that I have who know, or I've been told they're like my really close friends. They've been, who've been there when I've had the issues at the hospitals and etc., who've just been there for me. So they know, friends that have known that we want kids and it's not happening, so when I say inner circle friends, but I just really feel it's just impacted it in such a positive way. I can't really say a negative way, because the friends who know No, because they're in my life. You're really in my life. Yeah. So
it's wonderful.
Yeah. Luckily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not the same for everyone.
It's not the same
for everyone, because I know one of my friends, she doesn't want children, but she doesn't say to me, oh, don't have, well, what, you know, why don't you just live? She's not like that, because it's not, some people can be like that, because it's not her. So it's quite nice that she doesn't want children. And I'm sure, I always say to her, I'm sure if you changed your mind, you'd probably get pregnant like that, and it'd be so annoying because you don't want children, you haven't had children all this time, and then you might change your mind and you'll probably be the person who gets pregnant just like that. Oh, how annoying would that be? So we laugh about things like that, because we're different.
And that's lovely that you can have that kind of conversation with her as well. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So if you had to tell us any word of affirmation that you found helpful during this journey so far.
Words of affirmation, what did I? There's not been I think maybe the last year or 2 years, I really felt like it just kept on reminding me of, like, you're not alone. There is just so many people go out there going through the same journey, and I just keep thinking you're not alone. And that's the whole point of reaching out or meeting people who are on the same journey as you. And over the years, there's things that I've said to myself, or during fertility treatment, just little words, nothing major, but things like, I'm ready to be a mom, I will be a great mom, just things like that I have said to myself and believed it. However it's going to happen, or when it's going to happen, I'm open to it. I will be a great mom.
Amen. That's really nice. And what do you wish people knew, like others that are not dealing with it? What do you wish they knew about infertility?
What do I sorry?
What do you wish other people knew about infertility? So some people that are not dealing with it and just probably don't understand, what is that one thing you wish they knew?
Think, just don't go through it alone, because there is just so much information out there that you won't know, you won't realize that exactly what you're experiencing. So many other, it's not even thousands, hundreds, millions are going through the exact thing you're going through, or whatever has happened. Or, there's just, some people get told that their egg quality is not good. If you don't meet other people, you're not going to hear about a book about how to increase egg fertility and vitamins. How are you going to know all these things? How are you going to learn? How are you going to, instead of being broken, how are you going to realize that there is hope? There is still hope. There is still a way, or there might be a way, or it might not be time for you to give up yet. I think we all know when it is to give up, but if you don't speak to other people, and that's with me, I have learned so much by speaking to other women online, whether it's from the clinics or hearing about these groups, to read up, and you just find out so much. You just think, goodness, all these people are going through.
I know.
And also what you're going through, there's so many people going through so much worse. And you think, wow, I just can, but whatever you are going through, that is yours. But you just think, oh my gosh, that's it. But then you hear all these other stories and you think, wow, if they were able to battle through that, or how did they find out about this place, or, but, and I also think, especially coming from African community, Nigerian, African, I just feel like, don't listen to those aunties. That's because it's true.
Annoying aunties.
Don't listen to those aunties. Don't say anything. Don't talk to one. And it's not about running down the road, jumping, oh, we're trying to have a kid. What's happening? It's about go to the clinic. Don't sit there for how many years. Go to a clinic. It's private. Go to the clinic and just go and do the test, or go and speak to someone in this, I don't want to say this industry, but this profession, and just start the ball rolling and start learning. And that's the thing about the journey. It might happen just like that, but it might not. And which means you will have to learn, you have to advocate yourself. You'll see a doctor and you'll have to question them, but you have to start before you get to that point. And that's what I didn't realize until, you know, later on. I'm thinking, actually, no, this medication is better for me, you know, no. And you have to question them. And I mean, just sitting there and just sitting there is really, you have to hope. But I think it's Natalie that was saying this with her story, that you do have to hope, and if you pray, you do have to pray, but also you have to start doing things yourself. You have to start advocating for yourself and doing things and going out there to make it happen as well. But sorry, go ahead. But also a lot of it is fear, and of course fear of the unknown. But knowledge is power, isn't it?
Yeah, and rightfully said. Like for everything else, like if you have any form of condition, if you're not feeling okay, you're gonna go to the clinic anyway, right? So if you're trying to conceive and it's not happening, there's absolutely nothing wrong in going to the clinic. Now you can decide to choose how you proceed when you're given the options, but at least it's good to know what your options are, as opposed to just So for sure, we need more awareness in our communities about that. Again, going to the clinic is not anti-God, and it does not mean you're taking power from God. It's just, it's just something that you need to do to be able to. And again, I think we also need to stress the fact that IVF is not a guarantee. So just because you go to a clinic doesn't mean it's taking power away from God. It still needs to be blessed, the whole process.
Yes.
So, like, I mean, you find doctors telling you all the time, I've done what I can do. You know, the rest is left to nature or any other higher power, whatever you believe in. So it's not taking power from God. So I think we need to increase more awareness in our communities about that. So thank you so much for speaking about that. So thank you so much, ChiChi, for coming on the show today. It's been such an informative session.
Thank you.
Telling us about, you know, IVF and fertility treatments abroad, you know, factors to consider, or, you know, choosing different clinics and making a vacation out of it while you're getting treatment. And,
you have to. It breaks it up.
Yeah, right.
It really does break it up.
Helps to balance it up a bit.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing having you on here. So we'll wish you a lot of luck on the rest of your journey.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to welcoming you back in the near future.
Thank you.
To further share more information and see where you're at that time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so you know, it's been a pleasure having you on here. If anyone wants to connect with you, again, your details will be in the show notes. So thank you so much, ChiChi.
Great. Thank you for having me on the show. And thanks for what you're doing. What you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
Raising awareness and having these difficult conversations and people really listening to realize, you know, that there's so many other people going through the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you rightfully said, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Fertility Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Fertility Conversations. If there are any topics you would like to have discussed, please send an email to fertilityconversations@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. Thank you again for listening. Take care of yourself and do stay hopeful.